Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This is part 8 of the Adobe FrameMaker Essentials Learning Series. And my name is Barb Binder, and I'll be your host for this hour. Most of you have probably already seen some of the earlier webinars and know who I am. So very briefly, if this is your first one, I'm the owner and lead instructor at Rocky Mountain Training. We offer online training as well as in-person training on the Adobe Creative Cloud applications and the Technical Communication Suite applications. I am an Adobe community expert and volunteer time on the community forums every day. And I have been an Adobe certified instructor from 1997 until the termination of this program at the end of last year. I've been training on FrameMaker since the early 90s, and I'm excited to share some of my shortcut tips with you during this next hour. If you'd like to stay in touch after class, you're welcome to get a screenshot of this page. My email is there, my website. I have maintained a blog since 2009 as a way to answer student questions. So when a student finishes a class and they think of something they forgot to ask me, I post their questions and their answers on the blog. There's years of FrameMaker information for you, and it's free. The single best place to get an answer about FrameMaker, however, is to go to community.adobe.com and scroll down until you find the Adobe FrameMaker icon, click it, and then click on Discussions. Here you can search through thousands of questions that people have asked over the years. And if you don't see an answer quickly, you can just ask us your question. There are a bunch of us who are on there every day ready to answer questions for you. That's really your best place to go to get quick answers in FrameMaker. Now, here is the plan for this upcoming hour. I want to start by talking about ways to organize your screen so that you have your screen ready to go to cut down some of the time you might spend looking for things you need. I want to talk about using shortcuts. I'd like to talk about people who start a new FrameMaker document by typing in FrameMaker. It's called authoring in FrameMaker, and some things they can do to make that go a little bit more quickly. And then I'm going to spend some time talking about what happens when you're importing files from Word into FrameMaker, which can be more problematic than authoring in FrameMaker, and ways you can trim down that time. And then the webinar is going to end with a quick discussion about scripting, because that is the fastest way to speed up your workflow. So let's not waste any more time and go get started. This webinar is targeting intermediate to advanced level FrameMaker users. You're the ones that are using FrameMaker every day, perhaps. You know how to get your jobs done and out the door, but maybe you're aware that things might be able to be accomplished more quickly if you just thought about how you could cut out some steps. Honestly, I think about this every single day. I live in Colorado because I like to be outside. And when I wake up in the morning, I think about what I have to do before I'm able to go outside. With that in mind, when I open up a FrameMaker document to start working, I'm thinking about my workflow all the time. And how can I cut out steps and do things more quickly so that I can go outside and play? I may not be able to give you exact steps to streamline your workflow because I don't know what your actual workflow is, but I am going to share tips that I've learned that will work in a variety of situations through FrameMaker. And if nothing else, maybe you'll start thinking more about streamlining actively rather than passively and begin to figure out how you can cut out some steps in your own workflows. To me, this starts with getting organized. And there are two ways to get your screen organized. One is to set your preferences, and the other is to design a good workspace. You'll find preferences in the Edit menu, and I'll be in FrameMaker in just a minute, and I'll show you where this is. But what you'll see listed on the screen right now are things that I want to change when I have a new FrameMaker installation. For example, I primarily use unstructured FrameMaker, so I'm going to change the interface from structured FrameMaker to just plain FrameMaker because it has less elements on screen that I'm never going to use. In terms of the workspace, a perfect workspace is one that has everything I need on it and nothing that I'm never going to use. And to FrameMaker, a workspace is going to be the visibility and the position of your toolbars and your panels. You'll want to think about customizing it, and then saving it. I'll show you that in just a second. Now, while I'm in FrameMaker, I'm going to roll from those two topics right into shortcuts. And I do want to point out that I have a fair number of students who come to my intro classes and announce, I don't use shortcuts. I'm not going to use shortcuts. And I understand that. There's a lot going on in FrameMaker, and for a new user, trying to work with a lot of shortcuts is definitely overwhelming. I much prefer that they focus on how FrameMaker works and where things are and understanding the basics. Although I will encourage them to use some of the Windows standard shortcuts like Control-S for save and Control-Z for undo. I think everyone can benefit from those. Cut, copy, and paste also has standard shortcuts. You can be in any Windows program and use those 5 shortcuts the same way. And that's going to be a time saver all over the place. Now, there are also some FrameMaker specific shortcuts I'm going to talk about. They work a little bit differently, and I'll explain it in just a second. Towards the end of the webinar, I'm going to show you some shortcuts for navigation and magnification, also for select all. And I'll come back at the end and discuss these shortcut strategies. You might want to have a pencil and paper out now so you can jot down some of the shortcuts if any of these resonate with you, or take some screenshots while we're talking. Remember that this webinar will be posted on YouTube after it's presented. You can always go back and watch it again. You can pause it, listen to something again if you're not sure how you can incorporate it. So here I am back in FrameMaker. This is version 2022. Almost everything I'll say during this hour is going to be part of any current version of FrameMaker. The only thing that is unique to 2022 that I'm thinking about right now is being able to add highlighting to your variables. That is specifically for FrameMaker 2022 and presumably moving forward, but not the earlier versions. So preferences are set at the bottom of the edit menu. I'm not going to go over all of them with you. You can go back and look at that screenshot and maybe take a picture of it if you want to when the recording is posted. But I would typically begin a new FrameMaker installation by running through these different categories and modifying the things that I like to have different than what Adobe thinks they should default to. And since I mentioned the variable highlighting, this is new in 2022, it's going to be in that left column, but you're not going to see it if you're on an earlier version. So first thing I do is set my preferences, and that's going to include the colorful icons you see here and up top. The colors really help me move around more comfortably when I'm using my mouse. So that's the first thing to think about. The second thing I want you all to think about is working with custom workspaces. To me, the perfect workspace is not one of the ones that ships with FrameMaker. They're a great way to get started, but Adobe doesn't know what we do on a day-to-day basis, only we do. And so the perfect workspace is one that has everything I need every day and nothing I don't need. I'm going to show you 2 workspaces that I use. The first one I choose to call Layout, and when I show you Layout, you're going to see that I've got the tools that I need to lay out a FrameMaker document. I prefer to put my catalogs on the left and have them open so I can see them while I'm working, have my panels on the right. When you're setting up your custom workspace, most of the panels, many of the panels are going to be in the View menu under Panels, but you'll find more peppered through the various menus. I don't do a lot with toolbars, but I do like to have the graphics toolbar open if I'm doing any work with those tools, as well as the text formatting toolbar. Now, I'm going to give you a quick warning. The text formatting toolbar, if you use some of these buttons up here, are going to introduce overrides. And we don't want overrides in FrameMaker because we want consistency across the duration of a chapter and eventually the duration of a whole book. If you've got overrides in there, things are going to look different as you move through the document. But I'm always watching for problems, and having the text formatting toolbar open lets me keep an eye on the font and the size that's being used. In any given document, I know what those should be. And if I see something I'm not supposed to see, some weird font that came in from Word, I'll know it and I can then pull them back out again. So I like to see them while I'm working. That's all I'm saying. Now, this particular workspace is one I use when I'm working in laying out a document. But when I move to books, there's too much going on. So I have a different workspace for books. I've saved both of these in advance. And if you go back to the first webinar in the whole series, it was on an introduction to FrameMaker. That one explains how to create a workspace. So this is very different. I've gotten rid of most of the things on screen. My panels are all on the right now, and I've collapsed them down so they're not taking up any room. This really only works if you're familiar with where things are and if you recognize the icons. So if you're trying to head this direction, you might find it easier to leave them open for a little bit until you start memorizing icons and locations, and then put it back over there. Now for shortcuts. The first place you're going to see shortcuts is going to be in the menus. 2017, Adobe added the shortcuts to, well, the FrameMaker shortcuts to the menus. Up until that point, they were there, but you had to look them up. And so I just want to say briefly that there are two types of shortcuts in FrameMaker. There are the Windows compliant shortcuts that are using Control and another letter at the same time. For example, if I want to save, I hold the Control key and I tap the letter S. Those are pretty consistent across various Windows programs, especially in the File and Edit menus where the commands are consistent across other Windows programs. But we also have the FrameMaker specific shortcuts. They're going to begin with the Escape key, and they're going to be a series of sequential letters. They're not at the same time. They're one after the other. They're also case sensitive. So the one I'm pointing at right here is Escape FA, lowercase f, lowercase a. If I show you package, though, that's an uppercase F. So it's Escape Shift F LP. I know these are fussier than the basic Windows shortcuts, but once you're using FrameMaker every day and you're focused on getting faster, deploying these shortcuts is only going to help you. Don't try to learn them all the same day. Just work on them over time. And I wanted to demonstrate an Escape key shortcut, so I'll go ahead and choose the one for Save As, which says Escape FA. F is for File, and then the File menu. A is for As. And I say that to myself as I'm tapping those. Escape, the lowercase f, the lowercase a, and then the Save As dialog box is going to open up. Of course, the Enter key is a shortcut for the OK button, or Adobe's synonym for the OK button, and the Escape key is the shortcut for Cancel. There are shortcuts for just about everything you can do in FrameMaker. I definitely encourage you to learn them. I'll incorporate some of them while I'm talking, and you can always look them up. When you're trying to find shortcuts, and either there are some for things that aren't in the menus, you just go to the Help menu and you choose Help Topics. That's going to open up a help screen and give you access to the various chapters in the FrameMaker user guide. In the left column, you'll see there's an appendix, and if you click the plus and then click on the word Keyboard Shortcuts, you're going to find all the different shortcuts listed here. They're grouped by function. So let's say you're working on tables. You could click on the tables option and then see all the table shortcuts. Or if you're working on document design, you could click that and see the shortcuts that are in that category. And then the way I learn shortcuts, I would look them up. I would put them on a Post-it and then put them on my monitor. And I would try to memorize the shortcut before, or the shortcuts, typically I have several there, before the glue dried and they fell off. If I made it, great. If not, I'd write them out again. That writing out helped me remember them as well. And then I put them back up. So I'll demonstrate some of these shortcuts as I'm talking about other things. Here's where you can find the shortcuts, and that's my Post-it tip for you right here. Another strategy I would use is if I was doing a repetitive task, I'd write down all the steps I had to follow, look up all the shortcuts and put them down. Again, on the Post-it, on my monitor, it might take a couple, and I would just keep them in front of me until I could learn them. So let's talk about efficiently creating a new document in FrameMaker. Ideally, you're working from a template, and let's go with that scenario. If you've got a brand new project that you have to work on that doesn't exist in any form, nothing in FrameMaker was ever in your office, and you've got to design a template yourself, That's a topic for a different webinar. There's one on templates, and earlier webinars discuss other things that are more basic in FrameMaker. But let's say that you have been tasked with creating a new chapter for an existing book, or perhaps you've got a new product in your office and you've been given the job to create a bunch of chapters for a brand new product in a brand new book. You're going to have to add the content. Now, somebody has to type up the content, and they have to type it up somewhere. If you're typing content in FrameMaker, I think that's awesome because you can type in a clean document because you already know FrameMaker and what you're supposed to do. And I've got some things on this page you can take advantage of, like smart spaces and smart quotes and the next paragraph tag and quick ways to assign styles and using shortcuts to add your assets. Those of you who are authoring in FrameMaker can produce very clean documents from the beginning. The nightmare scenario is what I'm typically faced with, where I don't do the typing, I do the layout for another company. They give me their documents, typically in Word, and they are a mess, and I've got to bring them into FrameMaker and clean them up. Let's start with the more pleasant workflow, the authoring in FrameMaker workflow. I'm going to go to FrameMaker and show you a couple of these things. So back in FrameMaker, I have a template open, and I'm ready to start typing. The first thing I want to point out is that you want to employ the next paragraph tag attribute if your paragraphs tend to fall in a predictable order. So let's say I'm tasked with typing up this product, and I put in the title. The style that's assigned in this template as a default is heading 0. When I press the Enter key on the keyboard and I create a new paragraph, watch the catalog. This new paragraph is not a heading 0, it's a body begin. And as I start typing, you can see that it doesn't have an indent and it's a whole lot smaller and different color, etc. How did that happen? Well, the person that designed this template knew about the next style attribute. So if I go over to Paragraph Designer and click on Basic Properties, down here, it says next paragraph tag should be BB body begin, which is exactly what happened. So the Enter key assigns a style to the paragraph that follows. This is only going to work if you're typing in FrameMaker. Now, if I finish this paragraph and I want another paragraph, this one is set to go to BC body content. So as I press the Enter key and continue typing, that's a different paragraph style again, and that one has an indent. If I press the Enter key again, it's not specified. You can see it right over here. There's nothing there. So it just uses the same style. That's a quick way, if your paragraphs fall in a particular order, to not have to spend a lot of time assigning styles. Now, it's not always going to work. Let's pretend that last paragraph is supposed to be a heading 1. I can see it in my catalog. I could certainly click it right here. You know how to do that. So let me give you 2 other choices. Just make sure you're aware of them. If you have a really long catalog, and a lot of my students do, so many styles you can't see them all, you can filter to what you're looking for by typing on the filter line at the top. If I type in the letter H, I'm going to see the styles that have an H in there. If I type in a 1, I'm going to see the styles that have an H1. So I can quickly find a style I'm looking for, even if it's not visible, because I don't want to waste time scrolling up and down the catalog looking for the style that I need. So that's one technique. That works. I'm going to pick Undo, and then I'm going to remove that filter. Here's another one, though, and this is using a keyboard shortcut. If I have my cursor in a paragraph and I tap either F9 or Control 9, you will get a context-sensitive paragraph catalog. And this one is slightly different in that it's going to go for whatever starts with the character you type in. So where the paragraph catalog filter had anything with an H in it, this is the ones that start with an H. I can use the arrow key to find the one I want, arrow back up again. I can press Enter to assign it. Or I could just type H1 because that's going to only find one, and then I can just press the Enter key automatically. If I want to assign head 2 with that technique, I tap either Control 9 or F9. I'll type in H2, press Enter. It's now assigned a head 2. Again, I'm going to choose Undo. There is a variation on that that happens with character styles. If I want to emphasize these letters right here because they're really important, I want them to stand out, I can see something called EH emphasis heavy. I could click it. I could also filter. It works the same way I just showed you. Or the shortcut will be either Control H or F8, whichever is on your keyboard. And if you have both, then just pick one. I'm looking for emphasis heavy, EH, enter, and that's all it takes to assign styles with the keyboard. I find it quicker if I can type and style at the same time. So knowing those shortcuts helps me get through the assigning styles very quickly. Now, I did mention smart quotes and smart spaces. That feature is up in the format menu. It's under document text options. You want those to be checked. Smart quotes means you'll get a true open and close quote when you put quotes around something. And smart spaces means that you will never get two spaces in a row. Keep in mind that the rule in publishing is we never double space things. Now, FrameMaker users may already know that, they may not, but Word users almost never know that. They're taught in typing to double space out sentences. In publishing, that's never been done. FrameMaker has that control in there, so it just doesn't happen. So you don't have to worry about correcting these things later, like I might have to in a Word document. As a matter of fact, I get files where both of these are incorrect. Turning them on after the file has been imported doesn't help. If the problem's in the document, this isn't going to fix it. You got to spell check, for example, or fix them manually to take them back out again. Okay, and then I was going to encourage you also to continue using shortcuts. So let's say that I'm going to put in some more text and then I want to add a picture. I've got a style that is going to be used to hold my frame, my anchored frame. The style name is figure frame, FF figure frame. So I'll tap Control 9 or F9, FF, enter for figure frame. It removes the indent. And then I'm going to import a picture. Now, I use shortcuts all the time, so I know the shortcut. I'm going to press Escape, F for File, I for Import, F for File. That's going to open up my import dialog box. Let me grab a picture. I'll just double click it. And then what FrameMaker is going to do is ask me what size. I'll make it smaller, a little bit higher res, and hit set. It's going to anchor the picture below the current line because that's the default in preferences. You can modify that if you never use it, but that's the default. And what I want to do now is I want to tighten up the frame to match the graphic and anchor at insertion point. Doing this manually means first tugging on the handle so the frame is the same size as the graphic, and then head over to anchored frame and change the anchoring position to at insertion point. Now there is a shortcut that will do both of those things for you. Keep in mind that it always does both, never just one or the other. If I press Escape, M as in make, P as in pretty, FrameMaker will tighten up the frame to match the graphic and anchor at insertion point at the same time. That command is not in the menu. You have to know about it. And it's my students who came up with Make Pretty. Some suggested in the early FrameMaker classes I taught, Make Perfect. I'm a perfectionist. Nothing's ever perfect. So I went with Make Pretty. Whatever you want is okay. And then I want to add a caption, but this is set up so that if I'm in a figure frame and I press enter, it goes to the caption and I can then just start typing. So hopefully that's given you some things to think about as you are working on creating a new document in FrameMaker. Let's go ahead and talk about importing text from Microsoft Word and ways to streamline that process. So here is a list of features you might want to consider including in your Word to FrameMaker workflow. Style mapping, a quick way to remove overrides, 2 additional ways to assign styles, and then I'll cover some general find and change cleanup tips. Let's go ahead and start in Word. So here's a basic Word document that I want to import into FrameMaker. And I've learned a lot of things over the years working with authors, and one of them is that they like to format while they're writing. So we can take advantage of that. If you can show them how to use styles, they can be assigning paragraph styles while they're writing the document. Word has styles that appear in these boxes at the very top of the home ribbon. there is a button on the bottom right of that group that allows you, if you click it, to open up the styles panel. And these are just the Word default styles. I didn't play with those. Those are the names you'll see. And what I'd ask the writers to do is to go ahead and assign a style to identify the different kinds of paragraphs they're working with. This is going to be our chapter title. In FrameMaker, it's a heading 0, H0, but in Word, the closest equivalent is assigning it the name title. And if they can do that for me, I can leverage that when I import the document. And so I want them to go ahead and assign these styles as they go. The default style in Word is normal. Every paragraph is assigned normal until you tell it otherwise. After those normal paragraphs, I'm going to go ahead and click on History of Flight and make that a heading 1. And then I'm going to just scroll through here and assign a few more styles. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but let's go ahead and say that these are heading 2s and heading 2s. And then I'm going to make this right here a list, and I'm going to click on the bullet button at the top, which is going to assign a style called list paragraph. And then I'll make vehicle structure a heading 2. And I've actually already styled the rest of these, so I don't spend time going through that with you. So that to me is really helpful if I can get them to assign styles. Let me show you the end of this document. First of all, there's a bunch of returns down here because almost every file I ever get from an author has a bunch of returns at the end. I don't know why. I just always see them. So I wanted to point them out. And then there's a table. You'll just see what it looks like. All the content is there, but it's not quite the formatting we want. And then back on page 1, I want to talk about a couple other things. While the authors are writing, they're probably thinking that there's some things that are really important that they want to stand out. And for that, they might want to select something and assign perhaps bold or italic or another style. I'm going to go ahead and click on italic here. And then I'm going to do that just 2 more times. I'll grab these 2 words, pretend they're important, and make them italics. And I'll grab these words, pretend they're important, and make them italics. That's called inline formatting. And a lot of Word users don't use styles for that. They just use the buttons, so that's fine. As long as I know it's in there, I can take care of that. And then there are 2 more things that a lot of Word users will do. One is add extra spaces here, there, and everywhere. They might finish a sentence or a paragraph and add some spaces. Between sentences, I can almost always assume they're going to have extra spaces. And then again, perhaps at the end of a paragraph, they've added a whole bunch of spaces. And then the other thing that they'll do is they'll add random hard returns, sometimes to space things out because they don't know how to use the spacing commands in Word. So I'll just add a couple of those. I'll add maybe 2 here, and perhaps I'll have 3 here. You saw there's a bunch at the end. These are all the kinds of things that I expect to see in a FrameMaker document delivered to me, or a Word document delivered to me for FrameMaker. And I don't bother them on those. If they can give me the paragraph styles, that is plenty, and I'll be happy. So let me save this file, and then I'll take it to FrameMaker and we'll import it. So we're back in FrameMaker, back in the same template. The only thing that's different that you're not going to notice unless I point it out is I made a new style down here that I called Throw Out. And here's why. In FrameMaker, we have paragraph styles and we have character styles. They're in their own catalogs. Here's paragraph, here's character. They're separate from each other, and that's all good. But in Word, you can assign formatting as either the character style or a paragraph style, depending on how you assign it. The same name could go either way. And when we import files from Word into FrameMaker with style mapping, FrameMaker is going to try to bring the character styles in that might not be used and that I usually do not want to have. So the way I do this is I create a style called Throwout, and I can map all the character styles I don't want to that style, and then I can just throw that style out and they all leave at one time. That's quicker than me picking through the character catalog looking for the ones that came in from Word. Let's go ahead and import that Word file into FrameMaker so I can show you style mapping. I'm going to use a keyboard shortcut. It's Escape FIF. That's File, Import File. This is the Word document. I want to copy it. I'll pick Import. It is a Word file. I'll pick Convert. And this is the Style Mapping dialog box. Now, I've already set it up for you because it's time consuming to go through it, but let me show you how it works. The first column is listing the word styles that are in use in that document. The right side has a list of all the FrameMaker styles. And so, for example, you saw me assign the style title to the first page. I want to map it to heading 0. And if I didn't know, I would just go through the list until I find the correct style. This is the paragraph catalog in FrameMaker, and I click the one I want to assign. So I'm going to map normal to BB body begin in FrameMaker. List paragraph, that's the bullet list. I'm going to map to L1 list level 1 continue. Couple things to know going on here. One, FrameMaker needs us to restart lists one way or another. And I'm just going to bring in a list that continues the numbering, and I'll talk about how to fix that. But secondly, in Word, list paragraph is bullets. I'm mapping it to a numbered list in FrameMaker. So I'm changing the formatting because I want to show you something. You don't have to, but I'm doing that. And then heading 2s map to heading 2s and heading 1s map to heading 1s. The spelling isn't important in Word or FrameMaker, just that you know the word spelling to map to the correct FrameMaker spelling. And then footnotes are mapping as well. Now, these are the character styles that go along with the paragraph styles that we don't need. And since there's no way to say don't import them, I'm mapping them all to the same character style I called throw out. So they're already ready to go. And then underneath that, there's a check mark that says import Word document inline styles and list formats. Well, we definitely want the list formats because we have a list or several lists, but inline styles is also really important. When you saw me assigning italics to emphasize some words, that's inline formatting. I didn't use a style. I was just clicking the italics button. Somebody might click the bold button or the underline button. The first time I used this feature in FrameMaker, I was so excited it was in the new release that I completely overlooked that check mark and just was busy up here with my mapping. And I ended up stripping out all of the inline formatting. Didn't even notice until the editor said, hey, those files we gave you had bold and italics in there. What happened to that? Well, I happened to that, and I had to put them all back in again, and that was painful. It's a lesson I will never forget. We can also map tables to table styles. So if you've got styles in your table catalog, you can come over here and tell FrameMaker to assign them to the tables that are in that document. I'm going to go ahead and assign table shaded. And then under advanced, 2 more features. We can automatically remove manual page breaks on import and empty paragraphs. Remember all those hard returns I added in? They're going to get removed automatically when we import. The spaces aren't. Spaces aren't included here, just the returns. So I'll click OK. And in a real document, I would probably spend 20 minutes setting up all the mapping for chapter 1, and then have to do it again for chapters 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. That's too much work. So you save a preset file. I've already created a preset file. It's coming up here. I called it Demo Mapping. I haven't changed anything, but I'll go ahead and save it anyway. It's going to update that file so that next time I bring in another Word document to the next chapter, it can map all that automatically. All right, so I'll go ahead and pick OK, and the text is going to come on in. Now, FrameMaker put us on the last page of the document. See that end of flow marker? I'm going to click and just press backspace, and now I can see the table, which has been formatted, although it still needs some attention. Let's head up to page 1 and start there. Now, what you're going to see is that the style mapping worked beautifully. This particular paragraph's general description was tagged as title in Word, but the mapping table told it to map it to heading 0, and it did it. All of these map to body begin, and in this particular template, these guys should have been body content, and I could either have added more styles to Word or just assign them here, whatever seems easier for you. I'm happy to get as much as I can get done for me. There's my heading 1. Some footnotes are down here. They map correctly. And let's go look at the next page. That looks good. No issues there. Let's go to the next page. And that doesn't look so great. This list doesn't look right. And what I'm seeing is a tiny little bullet. It's like the size of a period Then there's a tab, but there's no spacing. So something went wrong here. If I click on this first entry and I look, it's been assigned the correct style. It says L1 list level 1, but remember, we had our list set as bullets in Word and numbers here. And so FrameMaker has introduced an override. There are lots of reasons why we get overrides, but you can count on overrides in FrameMaker when you're bringing files in from Word, and they're all over the place. This is just an easy one to understand. So to get rid of it, we could just go click on the name. If you click it, that removes the override, and that's the way it's supposed to look. I'm going to go ahead and undo. Or you could ask FrameMaker to locate the overrides for you and remove them all at once. And we can do that with a find and change. Now, this feature has been around for a while. A lot of my advanced users aren't aware of it. It's one of those that just snuck in and people didn't recognize it was there and don't know to use it. So let me show you. FrameMaker can locate and remove paragraph format overrides, character format overrides, and object style overrides. All of them can be removed just from find and change. You can do it to a selection, to a document, to a whole book, just like regular find and change. I'm going to go ahead and say that I want to remove all paragraph format overrides. And when I choose it from the top, the change automatically switches to remove override. And I'll go ahead and do it for the entire document. I'll be brave and just choose change all. So look, FrameMaker located 100 paragraphs in this document and removed all the overrides all at one time. That's a pretty great feature, particularly if you've missed it up until this point. So the next thing I'm going to do is tap the Control-G shortcut to go to page 3. This list looks great, 1, 2, 3. If you look down here, you realize the problem I was referring to when I was talking about the mapping. There are different ways to restart lists, but the way this particular template works is we have to manually restart the lists. And even though 1 is good, we should still do it here. So what I'm going to do is click on step 1, and I'm going to come over here and choose L1 list level 1 begin, which has the instruction to start at 1. Now I've got a whole bunch of these, and there's no reason I can't just go assign styles all the way down like that, but I want to show you more things. So I'm going to go to the edit menu. I'm going to pick copy special, and I'm going to copy a paragraph style to the clipboard. So like I copy text, I just copied a style. That lets me come down here and I can paste it in. The first time I'm going to right click it so you can see I'm physically clicking on paste. After that, I'll just use Control-V. But you can see how I pasted the style in, and now that looks better. Right here, I'm going to paste. I meant to tap Control-V, so next time I will come here and tap Control-V, and then there might be one more. Yeah, there's one more list that needs to get restarted. I'll tap Control-V, and now they're done. Now that might not seem like much of a shortcut, but if you're working on a very large high-definition monitor or 2 monitors, there could be a lot of distance for your mouse to travel between the catalogs and the page. If I'm doing a lot of styling with the same style, I'll use copy and paste like that. So I think that's really helpful. Good. Okay, let's now head back to page 1, and let's talk about the inline styles. So this text is italics, and so is this. So yeah, I've got that one, and this one. They're italics because the inline style was checked, and so it brought it in, but it's not using a style. So here's a way to retrofit inline formatting with styles, which is really a better way to go. You can select the first occurrence, for example, background information, and you can manually assign a style. I'll go with emphasis heavy because it's more obvious. It's going to be heavier and bold and italic. And then once assigned, we can copy that to the clipboard. Same feature, edit, copy special, and I'm going to copy the character style this time. But rather than watch me go through and find these again and highlight them and assign them, we're going to use find and change. So I'm going to come over here to find and change, and I'm going to say, okay, FrameMaker, I want you to find a particular formatting attribute. So I'll click character format. And then I'm going to set the window to as is. And here's a really handy shortcut. If I hold the Shift key and I type the F8 function key, it will set the entire window to as is. And then all I want it to do is find something that is italic. I don't care about anything else. So when I click set and I click find, it's going to find the first one, and then the second one, and then the third one. And if I had more, it would keep finding them, right? So let me try that again. This time, now that I know it's finding what I'm looking for, I'm going to change what it's going to do when it gets there. I'm going to say by pasting. Think about that for a second. I copied the character style to the clipboard. Now I'm saying find italics, paste in the style. So if I choose change all, FrameMaker finds all three occurrences of italic and it replaces it with the emphasis heavy character style. And the beauty of that is if somebody comes along later and they say, you know, that seems pretty dark to emphasize it with bold and italics, maybe you should just use italics or just change the color. You can redefine the character style, and because they're all using styles, they'll all update. Way more flexible to do it that way. So let's go look at that table. I believe it is on page 7. So I'll go there. There it is. And it looks pretty good. It needs a little bit of attention, but not a whole lot. What I'm going to do is select a couple of cells in the table. And I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut of Control A. That is the shortcut for select all. But if you're in a table, it will select everything in the table. If you're in the document and you do Control A, it'll select everything in the flow. So you want to pay attention to where your cursor is when you're using shortcuts. I want to select everything in this table. So I'll select a couple cells, Control A. And then I'm going to go ahead and assign cell body. And then I realized that this is supposed to look different as a heading row, and it doesn't know it's a heading row. So a new feature in 2022 is the ability to select one or more rows, right-click, and then come down to convert selected body row to heading row. And it can format it automatically. And while selected, I'll go ahead and click on cell heading. And you can see I did those two things. Now the title is showing up here. Did you know you can drag and drop? You can just drag something down and drop it off, and then assign a style. This one is called table caption, I believe. There we go. Got a couple extra returns there I'm going to pull out. Did you notice all the extra hard returns are gone under the table though? That's really good news. And then I'm going to select this main column here and then just drag it so that it's about the same width as the page. I think that looks a whole lot better and was pretty easy. And speaking of drag and drop, do you know you can rearrange content in tables? If you select a column like this and you hold the Shift key, you can rearrange the content. You can do the same thing with rows. Now, I'm messing up this table. It's not going to make any more sense, but you can drag and drop text from place to place. In a table with the Shift key, you can drag and drop to adapt the content in rows and columns. Now, the last thing I want to show you is back on page 1. Let me head back there. And remember all those extra spaces I added? There's extra spaces here, there, and everywhere. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit more so you can see them for 200%. So when I look at a document that I've imported in, I'm always looking to see what that particular author has added to the document. People put all kinds of crazy things into files, but they're very consistent with their craziness. And the double returns are already out on import, but now we've got the spaces. So years ago, I would use find and change, and I would search for 10 spaces, replace with 1, 8, replace with 1, 6, replace with 1. You know, it was time consuming. You can do a whole book at once, so it wasn't that bad. But with FrameMaker, we can do a regex find and change, which makes it quicker. So what I'm going to do is put this back to text, and I'm going to choose regular expressions, and I'm going to type in an expression for spaces. This is a horizontal space. \H means find one horizontal space. \H a second time says find another, or more is a plus. So I'm saying, okay, FrameMaker, if you see 2 or more horizontal spaces, I want you to change them to just a regular space. And I just press the space bar. I know you can't see it, so I'm highlighting it. That's a regular space. Now you can see all these big gaps, right? And all the spaces are right in here. I'm going to go ahead and hit change all. When I get back to page 1 again, it's found all of them. So that's using regular expressions. I know that's kind of a scary little introduction. You can do so much with that, and I'd love to talk about that at some point. But this file is now looking really good. So before we save it and close it, I'd like to point out just a couple last things. One of them is I mentioned that I mapped all of the character styles from Word that we didn't need and weren't being used to one character style in FrameMaker called Throwout. And I did that to have a quick way to remove all of them because there's no way to not import them. So what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to go to the little trash can on the character catalog. I'm clicking it. I'll click on Throwout. I'll click Delete. I'll click OK. And that style is now gone. And there's no evidence of any Word character styles in the document, which is exactly what I was trying to do. I know I mentioned the variable highlighting during the preferences part of this webinar. I haven't pointed them out yet, so you can see the variable highlighting is happening down here. Now, of course, if you know FrameMaker well, you know that variables are almost always used in the running heads, but they can also be used in the body of the document, and that's where I find the highlighting really helpful, so I can see it at a scanning level. And then lastly, I just want to share a few more document shortcuts that I use. I was trying not to use them during that last session, but I caught myself a couple times and just didn't mention it because I knew I was going to talk about it here. And so the first thing I want to mention is that you can navigate through a file just using the keyboard if you want to. Now, most people that are learning FrameMaker learn how to use navigation buttons down underneath my mouse. I've been using those, I know, as well. But if your cursor is in the document and your hands are on the keyboard, I'd like you to know that the page down key will take you through the document. Next page, next page, next page. The page up key takes you to the previous page. If you hold the Alt key and you tap page up, that's the first page of the document. And Alt page down is the last page. So Alt page up, Alt page down, page up, page down. I'm going back to page 1. Hopefully you know that already, but if not, that's certainly how I prefer to move through a document. My final set of shortcuts is how to zoom in and out using the keyboard. Of course, we all know how to zoom in and out with the magnification commands in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. For example, if I want to make the view bigger, I could click the plus a few times, or I could pick a specific magnification from this menu. In addition to that, you can also do this with the keyboard. So if I want to zoom in with the keyboard, I could press Escape, Z for zoom, I for in. I'll do it again. Escape, Z, I. If I want to zoom out, it's going to be Escape, Z for zoom, O for out, Escape, Z, O. If I want to get back to 100% magnification, I can press Escape, Z, Z. That's 100% magnification. And finally, if I want to see the entire page, it's Escape, ZP, Zoom Page. And that's it. So I'll go ahead and save this as one of my chapter files, and we'll be back here in just a second to talk about scripting. So I'm hoping that by now you've picked up one or two things, maybe more, that you can incorporate into your FrameMaker workflow to cut down on the time. If nothing else, maybe you're just thinking about your own workflow in ways you can be more efficient. But before I wrap up, I want to introduce the topic of scripting in FrameMaker. Scripts can be used to automate a process in FrameMaker or expand the feature set. Most of us don't have the skills to write a script that would work in FrameMaker, but we do have somebody who does this and does this very well. His name is Rick Quattro. He's out of Rochester, New York, and has a company called Carmen Publishing. If you spend much time on the community forums, you've probably already interacted with him. He answers a lot of questions under the name Frame Expert. He has a website, frameexpert.com, and he can provide custom scripts for you that are customized for your workflow. He also has an e-commerce store that has scripts that you can purchase. and even has a couple of free scripts up there, I believe. Let me show you how you could work scripting into your workflow. So I'm in Word, and I just threw in 3 sample tables that come with Word. 2 of them have the same content, but a different look. And I want to bring those into FrameMaker and talk about how you would clean them up. So back in FrameMaker, here are those 3 tables. They all look very different from each other. As I mentioned earlier, people who are writing for us tend to want to format as they write. It's very rare somebody will give me a clean, plain table coming out of Word. It's almost always pre-formatted. And my job is to make all the tables look uniform. Now, I resisted scripting for a long time, and part of my rationale was, well, you're a FrameMaker instructor. You should know everything about FrameMaker. You should be able to do things quickly and discuss workflows. And I developed a crazy workflow. I never told anybody. You're the first ones hearing this. What I would do, because I had very table-intensive documents, is I would zoom all the way out like this, and then I would work my way through the tables doing a variety of repetitive actions. I would pull out all custom ruling and shading on every single table. That would come back, and I would select everything in the table and assign the cell body tag for every single one. And then I would come back and I would take the first row and make it a heading row. I could do it all with shortcuts. I was just moving through tables quickly. And then one day I thought, this is crazy. There must be a better way. And that's when I located Rick's table cleaner script that I'm going to show you now. This is just one example of how scripting can help you. But let me just show you how much more efficient this is. And by the way, I can actually see what I'm doing when I'm working. So I've got these 3 tables. I want them all to look the same. I purchased Rick's script. I downloaded it in the startup folder within the FrameMaker folder system. And then when I relaunch FrameMaker, it shows up in my menu bar. You don't have this unless you purchase his script. It has a variety of things I can do to a table, and I'm going to show you some of the things it can do. The first thing I want to do is remove all custom ruling and shading from all the tables. So I'm going to come down to that command, remove custom ruling and shading from all tables. It says, which table format do you want to process? All 3 of these tables have been assigned a style called table. You can see it down here. I'm going to tell FrameMaker to find everything styled table, and I'll click OK, and bam, they're all removed. Now, I was doing this one at a time in that tiny view with shortcuts. This is so much quicker, and I can see I did it. So that's awesome. Then what I want to do is go to the table cleaner, and I want to batch convert body rows to heading rows. When we bring tables in from Word, they're not going to have header rows assigned. And it was a very convoluted process prior to recent versions. Now it's just a right click, but it's still time intensive. This is going to do all of them at once. So I'll choose batch convert body rows to heading rows. I'm going to tell it I just want the first one to be converted, everything style table. And when I click OK, it's done. But I can't tell it's done because I know my style, and it's supposed to have a black line above and below the heading row, and also a black line down here. And I'm not seeing that yet. And that's because FrameMaker tables coming from Word are going to hang on to overrides. I showed you this earlier. If I come down here and I can click table, and you can see that it does what it's supposed to do. It's got the lines there now, which is cool. I'm going to undo because I want to revisit something else I talked about earlier. We talked about removing overrides with find and change, and somehow I neglected to say out loud, so I'm glad I came back, that you can not just remove paragraph format overrides, character format overrides, and object style format overrides. You can also remove table format overrides. That's what's going on here. So I'm just going to choose remove table format overrides and change all. All have the correct table formatting. Now the styles aren't right. So what I'm going to do is grab a sample table. Let's grab this one, and I'll select the top row. And I'm going to come over here and say the top row should be using cell heading. They came in as normal because that's Word's default style. And then I'm going to select the first body row and say that one should be cell body. And now I've got those 2 formatted. What I'm going to do now is go back up to Table Cleaner ES, And I'm going to apply those formats to the other tables. See what that text looks like right there? When I click this and I click on table and I pick OK, now all three tables have the paragraph styles assigned correctly. Very quick. I could have 3 tables, 30 tables, 300 tables in this document. The script also works with books. I can do them all at once, and I can see that they're working because I'm zoomed in enough. Now, one more thing. And now I want to resize the columns in my tables. And let's say that I want all 3 tables to span the entire text frame. I can click in any of the 3 tables. I can go to Table Cleaner, resize multiple tables. Now, there are multiple ways of resizing all these, and you can explore these on your own. But I'm going to go with proportionally resized tables to fit the text frame width, everything style table, and when I click OK, they're all done. So that's pretty cool, you have to admit. Now, I'm going to switch gears for a minute and then come back to scripting again. To complete this document, you'll see that I need to put the titles into the title area to remove the extra hard returns. We did the titles earlier. I'm going to actually zoom in so we can both see it better because I'm struggling. There we go. So what I would do is just grab the text and drag and drop it in, and then come down and click on the table title style. Now I'm going to right click and copy special and copy the paragraph style to the clipboard, and that will make the other ones easier for me. So now I can grab the next title, drag it in, Control V to paste the format. Let's grab distance, drag it in, and then Control V to paste. So now all the titles are in there, and you can see how pasting a style can be quick when you're working with the keyboard. The last thing I'm going to do is just remove all the hard returns. And I did not use style mapping when I brought the tables in. So if I had, they'd be gone already. But I also want to show you how you can remove a bunch of paragraph returns and other spaces. There could be white spaces in there as well, automatically. And that's using yet another find and change. So I'm going to go back to text again, and I'm going to show you one last regular expression, abbreviated regex. The expression I'm going to use is to find any spaces, that's \s, one or more, at the end of a paragraph, and that's the $sign. So \s plus $. Regular expressions, I want to change to text, but I just want to get them out of there. I don't want to put anything else in. I want to leave it blank. So I'm just going to come in here and choose change all. You can see it has located and removed all the extra hard returns. I'm going to say one more thing. I realized at the end of one of the earlier sections that I left one trailing white space at the end of a paragraph, but I didn't see it in time to say anything. So I don't care for trailing white space. I like it out. This is the same expression to get rid of that as well. That extra space between the last character and the end of flow marker can be removed if I just choose change all. And there it goes, nice and clean. And again, regex is your friend. Find and change is your best friend to clean up a document. Now back to scripting. If you haven't thought about employing scripts in your workflow yet, I hope this convinces you that it's a worthwhile endeavor. Again, I thought I was so fast with what I was doing, did not compare to how quickly I could clean up files once I bought the script and downloaded it. It has been invaluable to me and my workflow. If this is intriguing to you, as something you want to pursue, I'd like to show you Rick's website. It's Carmen Publishing, Inc. The URL is frameexpert.com. His contact information is at the bottom left of this first page, the home page. But if you click on the store, you can see the scripts he has available for sale right now. And all kinds of things you can do in here. You can pursue these on your own. The one you saw me demonstrating was Table Cleaner, $39 US. I paid for that script in the first document I cleaned up. It's been working for me ever since, and I've been using it for a couple of years. It's just amazing. As I said, I can't imagine anybody working with tables who's not going to go out right now purchase it and download it. I think you should spend some time here to see what's available commercially already prepared. And then I want to share one more quick story with you about scripting. So when I started talking about scripting, I said it can do two different things for you in FrameMaker. One, it can automate your process. And you got to see that, I think, pretty well with the table cleaner script I showed you. But I said it can also extend the feature set. And I wanted to share a quick story. A while back, there was a company in Colorado who had been outsourcing their FrameMaker work to a local consultant. She had handled everything for years, and then she decided to retire. So the company decided they would hire somebody from within, train them, and have them take over. And I was the one who came in to help with that transition. I remember sitting down with the new hire and her boss one day, and he was asking me to explain how to get a specific PDF bookmark out of FrameMaker. FrameMaker can create PDF bookmarks, but the way he wanted it wasn't a possibility. And I'm an Acrobat instructor. I know Acrobat well, and I know FrameMaker well. So I said, no, there's no way to do this quickly. You have to enter the bookmarks manually. And he disagreed. He said, no, she's turning it over really fast. So there's something else going on. And I thought about it and thought, well, must be a script. And I know somebody who writes scripts. And so I believe what I did next is I reached out to Rick and asked him if he was involved in this script. Turns out he was. And then as I got to know a little bit more about the project, it turns out that the FrameMaker consultant had hired Rick to automate a lot of the process. So all sorts of things in the workflow were completely automatic. And the consultant saw the value in investing in scripts to save her time. I was able to get the company connected with Rick, and the two of them worked together and moved forward. But I think it's a good illustration of how investing in a script like this to save you time is probably going to be worth it in the long run. I meet people on the forums who say, I don't want to spend $40 for a script. And that seems a little bit short-sighted, but that's fine. But think about a large company. The rewards are so much greater in a large company where they can really save a lot of time. I just think it's worth considering scripting, not write it off, but consider it when the webinar is over and see if it's something you want to get involved with. Okay, we talked about streamlining your workflow. I hope I've given you some ideas of things you can incorporate into your workflow right away and get you to start thinking about other ways you can do that, including scripting. I want to say thank you to all of you for attending this webinar. My name is Barb Binder. I've got training classes. You can reach out. Don't forget to look at my blog if you have questions on FrameMaker. But the single best place to get answers is going to be community.adobe.com. And hopefully I'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody.